Hi everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I am Christina Stumble, the founder and CEO of Farmgirl Flowers, and I'm here to give another weekly update. Thanks for all of you who have been following along with us on this journey. So I am going to start with the good things from this week because they're just way more fun to talk about and think about right now. The positives, the really big highlights of the week is we launched Mother's Day. And you guys were amazing, are amazing. The amount of orders that you guys have placed for Mother's Day already and for Admin's Day this week just blew us away, like completely blew us away. So thank you for that. We also launched 2 more distribution centers, one here in the United States and one in Ecuador this last week. And both went very, very well and are now shipping regularly every day for us and with us. So that was a big highlight for the week. We also went and set up another distribution center here, a fulfillment center in California, and they started shipping this week as well. So a lot is going on. A couple weeks ago, you'll probably remember I said the goal was to have 5 operating distribution and fulfillment centers in time for Mother's Day. And with this last one that just started shipping this week, we have done that. So I'm very, very proud of my team who just worked so hard to make that happen, and all of our farm partners and distribution center partners that have helped with that as well. So a big shout out and thank you to all involved with that, and to all of you for continuing to support us with your dollars, and to kind of, you've been very flexible and forgiving and patient with us as we've had some bumps along the way. There's no way to open this many fulfillment centers and distribution centers in such a short amount of time without them. And I really appreciate how you guys have rolled with the punches with us. So thank you. I think those are the big highlights. They're big ones though, they're huge ones. I don't want to minimize that, but the next part of my update is going to be kind of a big bummer, to be honest. So I have a lot to say today, and so this is going to be a long one. And it's going to be mainly about the PPP loan and the stimulus package for businesses that I'm sure you've read a lot about. I have a lot, and you've heard a lot about them. And while you might be really more familiar with the individual package, I wanted to kind of bring some context and background and information about the business ones, because a lot of you have asked me questions and they've been really good questions. And even employees, team members have asked me, yeah, but what about all this money that the government's giving businesses like ours? And I want to explain what it is actually, and how it was set up, and how it was implemented and executed, and maybe be a face for everyone about like how this has impacted businesses like ours. And it hasn't been good. So that's the spoiler alert. It's not what you think it is. It's not what I thought it was. And so I wanted to explain it a little bit more. So just going to dig right in. Leading up to the date when businesses like ours were allowed to apply, I did my homework, and I did, sat in on many conference calls, Zoom meetings with amazing organizations and companies that were providing support to businesses like ours. And so I want to do a big shout out to companies, so many companies that did that. Ernst & Young did so many calls with their Winning Women program, and law firms that we work with did other calls. There were so many organizations that were trying to help make sure that businesses like ours, small businesses, knew what to do and when to do it, to make sure, honestly, that, kind of prevent what actually happened from happening. But we'll get there. I'll do another spoiler alert here is we didn't get it. So that's what I'm going to be leading up to here. But it wasn't for lack of trying or preparedness or information that we were privy to, because we did all of the things that we were supposed to do. found out from those conference calls, from lots of research on what I was going to need to do to ensure that we could get some of that. And why it was important to us was, for some obvious reasons, like I've mentioned, we had to lay off 90% of our team, furlough them, and then this last week we had to permanently lay off a lot of our team that we thought that some of the stimulus dollars were going to help us be able to bring some back. And that didn't turn out to be what happened. And so it was important for that. But then there's another big thing that most people don't think about, and I wouldn't know about either. Companies like ours cannot get bank loans. We just can't. So why that is, and it sounds crazy to me too, banks are set up in a very old, antiquated system where in order to get loans, you have to have money to get money, or you have to have very large POs. For instance, say like we had a big PO from like Walmart or something as being a product company. Then we'd be able to take that PO to a bank and say, look, I just need the money for working inventory to be able to order the products for this, to be able to fulfill this PO. And that's how banks have worked for so many years for companies like ours, product companies. They haven't caught up to actually e-commerce, a new way of purchasing. So we aren't a B2B company, which means we don't sell our products to other companies for them to sell. We don't sell wholesale to Walmart and have them sell our flowers to consumers. Just using Walmart as an example, national brand that everybody knows. And so we can't go to a bank. I've tried, believe me, so many, with my financial model and 10 years of experience now that says we always hit our numbers. So if I'm saying this is what we're going to do in revenue, this is what we're going to do in revenue, because there's no guarantee of that. And most of our orders come in within a couple days of when they are shipped out to the consumer. And so it's all based on projections, not on actuals. And so I can't get a bank to give me a loan in order to have, number one, a safety net. We've always been a company that pretty much operates paycheck to paycheck. And when COVID struck, we had 8 weeks of runway before we were out of money, because we, as a high growth startup, we reinvest all of our profits back into the company in order to fuel our growth. And that's what you have to do when you don't have outside capital, when you don't have any capital sources like banks or anything, not even just talking about venture capital and private equity. This is the way that bootstrapped companies have to operate. And it's different than what, especially in the Bay Area, what everybody assumes, how you're going to operate your company. So we don't have a bank loan. And so this assistance was also, even though I knew that most of it or all of it probably was not going to be forgiven, which we'll get to in a second too, just even the opportunity to have a loan, because I can't get a loan for my company from traditional sources. And that was so valuable to me because, number one, I could bring back more employees, more team members. Number two, as I've mentioned in previous messages in the past couple of weeks, the summer months are very precarious for us, for everyone in the flower business. And so while business is really good right now, thanks to all of you guys, I don't know what's going to happen after Mother's Day, when we typically slow down by 30 to 50% almost immediately. And if the economy crashes, if and when, looking at unemployment rates right now, doesn't seem like there's any way for it not to crash. If and when that happens, it's probably going to happen during the hardest months of the year for us, as it is. And so I need a way for us to make it through to fall. If fall rebounds, it all depends on the economy. If it rebounds, though, we'll be okay if we can make it through till then. If not, who knows? There's so much uncertainty right now with the economy that I can't speculate even. I can do a lot of financial models, which I am working on doing with every scenario in mind. But that assistance was really just, it could be a lifesaver for us. And now we don't have that available. And so let me go back a little bit, because I get ahead of myself a lot, and talk about how it was set up. Because I've done a lot of interviews recently where I've been asked so many times, whose responsibility, like who failed this? Like where was the failing for the PPP? And most people are saying it's the government, and I agree. There was so many failings from the government and how this was set up. It was set up so quickly and without enough, I don't know, foresight into how this was going to be used inappropriately and not for what it was intended for. But I'm just going to say I'm never going to be the smartest person in the room. I say that a lot, but it's the truth. I didn't go to college. I, am not a genius. I'm not a Mensa. I'm like, just I have a lot of common sense, and that is my strength. But even with that, I don't understand how I can come up with so many ideas of ways that this could have been set up better to ensure that what just happened, and what just happened, just gonna break it down, is big businesses and funded companies are the ones that received the majority of this money. And that has not been factually based yet. We've heard lots of stories, but that's what my gut is telling me, and my unofficial research into it. So I've talked to so many of my CEO friends and founder groups that I'm a part of, and what I have found is that every business that looks like us did not get it. And every business that is funded, or big business that has millions of dollars in the bank, even small businesses that just have so much more profit margin that they literally are sitting on millions of dollars, they all got it. And businesses like ours that make food and, although think of all the restaurants that you guys love to frequent, I love to frequent, and bars and manicurists and gyms and bike shops and apron makers and stationery makers and just so many of them, none of them got it. None of them got a penny. And why that is because when you have, this is my opinion, so I should just state that this is what I think is what happened. When you have these loans go through banks, you as a business owner are reliant on how, number one, how well your bank is set up to receive, to have the infrastructure built and to receive, if they're an SBA lender already, if they're not, you're just reliant on that. But number two, and this is the one that I think is just the one that stabs me in the heart, is that it's reliant on your relationship with your banker. I didn't even know that we had a relationship manager at the bank that we bank with, because they've never talked to me, because there's no reason for them to, really, because we never have enough money to make us a good, business for them to have a relationship with. And I was told by somebody at the same bank a couple of years ago that they don't do much to help support unfunded companies. They literally told me that on the phone. And I was really angry then. I'm still angry about it, really, but I get it from a business perspective. If we rarely have two dimes to rub together and they have businesses that have raised $35 million, who are they going to have a better relationship with? And while all the reports and the PR appropriate terminology to use is that it was first come, first serve, that's not actually true. I've had several people now tell me that their bankers that they have good relationships with told them that they were going to push through the businesses that they had the best relationships with. So therefore, the small companies like us that are unfunded and don't have, millions of dollars sitting in our bank account, don't have loans with those banks because they won't give us any, don't have lines of credit with those banks because they won't give us any, we're not going to be pushed through. So even though at 12:01 a.m. I logged into my bank after calling them a few days before, even to make sure I could submit, and wasn't able to get anybody to even talk to me, I tried to submit our application that I had all ready to go after listening to all the things I needed to know, after pulling all the reports I was told I was going to need to have. I was prepared. And at 12:01 a.m., I tried to submit our application, and I was not able to, because our bank, nor any other bank that I tried to submit with, was set up yet for success to be able to accept these applications. And all of them had the same report, that they were told at 11:30 the night before, they were given all the requirements from the government on what they were going to need to get from all of everybody submitting their applications, and they hadn't been able to build it, which I get. On the back end of your website, it's a lot of work, a lot of technology spend, and a lot of work to get your website able to receive these applications. And so that was a huge failing. The government should not have made all these promises that you were just going to be able to log into your bank and you were able to, any SBA lender, here's the list, and you were going to be able to, even if it's not your bank, you're going to be able to submit it, which is what was said. And then, whoa, some of the reports even said within 24 hours, you're going to get the money. I mean, anybody with a brain knows that's not going to happen because nobody can move that quickly, right? And it didn't. But what I didn't expect to happen was that the banks were not going to be set up to even receive them, except I heard that Wells Fargo and Bank of America were. So if you had great relationships, if you banked with those banks, because they were not accepting any applications from people that did not bank with them, believe me, we tried, then you were able to get first dibs on that money. And, the banks were all given allocations of what they could, who they could give the money to. And they, of course, did not pick companies like us. They didn't pick companies like your taqueria down the street. They didn't pick companies like your gym in the neighborhood. They didn't pick those companies because those companies do not have money in the bank, so do not make them a good relationship for them to have. So that's what happened. The government did not spend enough time, in my opinion, thinking about all the ways that this was going to be used inappropriately. I'm not saying this was malicious. I think everybody was trying to make sure they were helping. I get that. But, when you hear reports of companies like Shake Shack and Ruth's Chris getting, having, $100 million in the bank and still getting $20 million, and then companies like ours that can't even get a loan, not getting a penny, that's really disheartening, right? And also the way it was set up, I'm constantly amazed that there are not things put into place with everything like this that tiers companies or creates some safeguards so things like this don't happen. To me, it would be as easy as, checking people's run rates. If you have X amount of dollars in the bank and all you need to do is have people upload their balance sheet and income statement and the trailing 12 months of bank statements. And if you have, a certain percentage of what your run rate is, or even do it as a percent of revenue, then, you're tiered at tier 3. And so tier 1 goes first. And so those are the companies that literally have 8 weeks of runway or 1 week of runway. I mean, look at all the restaurants that have shut down already because, it's been less than 5 weeks because companies like ours and like theirs don't have months and months of capital sitting there in case something happens like this. And if it had been tiered, which, like I said, I'm not the smartest person in the room, but I could come up with ways that they could be tiered in a way that would give priority to the companies that really, truly need it most. And that didn't happen. And then on the other side, the flip side of it, CEOs, we have a responsibility. In order to fill out the PPP application, you had to say that this was necessary for your company. And I have talked to so many people that I know this is not necessary. They've just closed a huge round of capital. They have millions of dollars sitting in the bank, or the way this was set up, it actually hurts companies like ours because a little bit more knowledge. This is way more than you probably want to know, but I just need to talk about it. It's making me feel better, so thank you for hanging with me on this. The way it was set up is that it's a loan, a low interest loan to start. And if you use it for 75% payroll, it's used for allocated for 75% payroll, 25% other things, then it gets forgiven, which means it's free money. Now, when they're figuring out how much you can go for it, it does cap out at $100,000 per team member. So I'm just gonna use an example here. So let's just say you're a tech company and your average pay is $300,000 there for your team members, which may sound crazy to some of you. Not crazy. A lot of people out here make a lot more than that, sadly, but not my team, but a lot of tech companies. And let's say, when you're filling out the application, you're allowed, so you take your average payroll for the trailing 12 months, and then you multiply it by 2.5. But a lot of these companies, their pay scale for a lot of their team members, especially tech companies and ones that pay a lot higher than other industries, is higher than that 2.5 to more than $250,000. And so when you get this money that you were pushed through because you have $50 million sitting in the bank and you have a great relationship with your banker and they pushed yours through first, and you get this money and say you get $10 million, it's very easy, or much easier, I should say, for you than a company like ours, or that taqueria down the street, or the gym in your neighborhood, or the bike shop, to allocate 75% of that for payroll, because your payroll's so much higher than what companies like ours are. So then you spend 75% of it on payroll and you get it forgiven. So you get it for free. So you have, let's say, $50 million in the bank, and now you just got this loan forgiven, so you have it for free. And some of the CEOs that I've talked to that are friends, I can barely look at or talk to right now because I'm so angry, because the things that they've told me they're going to use this for, it rips my heart out. I mean, there's CEOs that they're thinking about buying other companies with it. They are getting rid of their 6% loan that they have because this one is free money. So while companies like us can't even get a loan, they're using their free money from the government. And let's break it down a little bit even further. Who's going to pay for that? My taxes. Your taxes are going to pay for that. So that money that the government's giving away right now in forgiven loans to companies who don't need it a lot of the time is going to come from your pay, your bank account, because now my business taxes and my personal taxes are going to have to help pay for these stimulus packages. So it's like a double slap. Like, we didn't get any of this, and we're going to have to help pay for it, which need to calm down a little bit. It's maddening, and it's super discouraging. So there weren't any of these precautions put in place to ensure that big companies that shouldn't be going for this because they don't actually need the money didn't go for it. And then if they did go for it, they wouldn't receive it, at least not as tier 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 of the companies that really needed it. I don't even love politics, but I can't tell you how many times I've thought about, after Farmgirl, maybe going into politics, because stuff like this shouldn't happen. It shouldn't have been set up this way, and CEOs should have more integrity than to lie, to falsify information and say that their company needed it. Many of these companies have not been negatively impacted at all, because if you're a tech company and you aren't making products with your hands, other than coding from your computer that you can do at home, if their sales haven't been impacted and their teams can work from home, which many of them can do, then why are you going for it at all? Why? I've only heard from one CEO that chose not to go for it. And I have to say that I was so impressed. I am so impressed. But one CEO, and I'll just do a shout out here. It was the CEO of CrunchBase didn't go for the PPP loan because, in his words, he didn't need it. They didn't need it. Their teams can work from home. They weren't negatively impacted. They don't need this in order to stay in business. There was, no instance where in the next 2 years they were going to run out of money. And so if they took this loan, they would be taking money from a company that needed it. I only heard that from one CEO. I know that if I had millions of dollars in the bank and had no issues of running out of money in the next couple of years, I definitely would not have gone for it, because we have a responsibility to do what's best for other people as well, and to think of the greater good instead of just ourselves. That's my opinion on that. And it just seems like that there were failings all the way around on this, and it's really sad. And I keep hearing from people that say, don't worry, there's going to be more money put into it. And the companies like Shake Shack that give it back. Oh, what a great thing they did, give the money back. No, that's not a great thing. And we don't know if there's going to be more money put into it. And if there is more money put into it, if it is, refunded by the government, how many tiers are we down because we don't have a good relationship with our bank? So confidence that small businesses will actually be the ones that get it on the second or third or fourth round. And that just means more tax dollars are going to have to go to more big businesses taking money, free money that they don't need, which is the opposite of what this was supposed to do. I've probably talked way too long about this. If you're still here with me, thanks for listening. And it was just really important. It is really important to me to talk about this because what I'm reading isn't the real story. It isn't the full story. And, you know, I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows that this is how it's really impacting businesses like ours. And I mean, honestly, we're in a much better spot than many other, small, tiny companies that, I'm trying to support with my dollars right now because I don't know that they're going to be around. And the same CEOs that took this unnecessary money are probably going to be complaining that they can't, go get the food that they want or go to the gyms that they want or get their nails done or buy flowers or anything like that because those businesses might not be around because of this. So that's why it's so important to me to talk about it, because I think knowledge is power, and knowing how this really impacted companies like ours is important. So thanks for that. Thanks for listening. And I'm hoping next week's a little bit lighter than this. So I'll be back next week with more, and I'll just keep talking about this as we go down the path together on it. So I hope you guys have a good week. I've heard from a lot of you how challenging the last week has been. So I'm really sending out all the good thoughts your way and hoping that this week is better for everyone. And I'll see you next week. Thanks.